Okay, everyone, welcome. I hope you're great tonight. We're super excited. This is our very first Sketch Together event here at the Bueno Social Club, and we are super excited to have you all here joining us. I hope that you get inspired and you get to connect with others. Okay, so for those who don't know, let me introduce you to Sketch Together. What is Sketch Together? Well, we're a team of creatives, and our goal is to transform Mexico into a global hub for design innovation. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, right? But we believe in Mexico. We do believe in Mexico and in our culture, and that we have what it takes to make an impact in the world. That's why we are here. Our mission is pretty simple. We want to elevate design from being just a skill or about making things look pretty to a way of thinking, connecting, and solving real-world problems. So we are here to make a difference. We are here, and we are thrilled that you are here with us, joining us in this journey. Our vision is creating a design culture where creativity and innovation can thrive here in Mexico City. It's not just about talks. We will have workshops, networking events, and like today, collaborations with international design leaders. We are building something big, and we are here with you, and we are all part of it. Okay, so tonight, we're honored to have Vicki Tan with us. Vicki is a design leader who has worked at some incredible places like Headspace and Spotify. She's here to share her insights and learning along the way. Also, she's going to do a quick Q&A session with Pablo at the end. But I want to talk about the future of Sketch Together. Looking ahead, we have got an exciting lineup of future presenters from all over the world. We are also planning workshops that dive into the technical side of design. Whether you are a beginner or a seasoned pro, there's something new for everyone. And well, we're community-driven. We want you to raise your voice. We want to hear from you. And if you have topics you are passionate about or you want to bring a speaker here you love to hear from, don't hesitate to let us know. Your voice matters to us. And okay, to keep up with all our events and updates, make sure to follow us in Sketch Together TV. We got a lot of exciting stuff coming up, and we don't want you to miss it out. Sorry, I'm nervous, exciting, my very first time here. Okay, and most of you are already in our WhatsApp group, so we will be sharing updates and everything we do. And I will share about our schedule tonight. First, I will share the mic with Pablo. He will be sharing a little bit about AI. Then Vicki will talk and we give a short talk. And after that, we will have a Q&A session. So get your questions ready. And then let's just enjoy the night, hang out, have drinks, stuff, and party a little bit. Why not? Before we kick things off, I just want to say a huge thank you to the Sketch Together team and all the... Yay. Thank you, team. Thank you to the Sketch Together team. Thank you guys for being here, for believing in this project. And everyone, you are so special. That's why you're here. And we're going to make Mexico the epicenter of design innovation. Thank you, and let's get started.
Okay. So, before we... abanico over there, it's not enough. No es suficiente, entonces usen esos, o pues usen este también. Y, pues bueno, vamos a empezar. Now, yo sé que está... Ay, Pablo, ¿por qué en inglés? ¿Qué se traen o qué? Lo que pasa es que we invited a lot of people from not just Mexico. We also invited people from all other countries here. So that's why we try to say like, hey, let's make it in English so everybody understands. But hopefully we're recording everything here, so hopefully we can make this available with subtitles also later. Or maybe an AI is going to like, hola, sí, este es. So I'm going to get a little bit inspirational at the beginning, and I want to say, hey, hey, you. Yeah, you. I want you to look around you and look at the faces here. You're all here hechos bola in this intimate setting for a reason. And you chose to be here, to learn, to connect, to grow. And this isn't a massive conference. I mean, we're here like all, look at you, just like on the floor, and here it's not just you, a face that just like gets lost in the crowd of a conference. Here you matter. Your presence here has an impact, and all of you are special. Here, this is a special group. I really believe in that. And I ask you to look around because I don't want you to underestimate the power of the connections you can make today. The person sitting next to you, that can be your next collaborator, your next co-founder, your next friend. So take the time to connect. That's why we also ask you to put the phone in that thing, because it's so easy to just like get in that thing, right? And not look at each other's eyes. So we can, we can connect, and we can work on what Vidi mentioned before. I know it's a little bit cringy, but I truly think that all of us can turn Mexico into a global hub for design innovation. Again, I know, cheesy, right? And I'm pretty sure that for some of you, it might be like even impossible. But I don't know. I don't know why. When did we start doubting ourselves? All of you, again, what you do, we saw your portfolios, we saw your links, we creeped on you. The team, we just like look at this stuff, and all that stuff was incredible. Really, really awesome stuff. But still, I don't know, sometimes we're not convinced of how good we are, of our capacity for excellence. But I don't know, it's crazy to me that in a country as rich as Mexico, our country, we sometimes forget of our own wealth of resources and talent. And I don't know, somewhere along the time, we started to doubt our own ability to make a change and an impact. But let's not forget, we have proven our capacity to the whole world in the past. We have demonstrated our huge creative power. Think back to the early 20th century, when Mexico was just a hotbed of creativity and innovation. Artists, intellectuals, creatives, writers, musicians gathered here in Mexico because it was the mecca for art and architecture and design. They shaped a cultural movement. So I don't know. I think now it's our turn. We have the opportunity to come together, just like they did, to make Mexico a global hub for design, innovation once again. Let's be the Diego Rivera of the digital age. The Calos, the Siqueiros, the Orozcos, the new Octavio Paz, Carlos Fuentes of the design world. I think all of us, all of you can make history again. So, okay, that was my inspirational speech. Now, I want to get into a less cheesy subject, okay? And I'll try to be quick, and I suppose you've heard of this thing. And I want to share some thoughts, I have about the future of design, and a future that's being shaped by AI. So are you ready? Yeah. So let's start with the elephant in the room. Job security. I'm pretty sure that some of you have been wondering that, like, is our jobs safe, But so Pablo says, am I still going to have a job? What do you think of that? The short answer is nope. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's an opportunity. And I'll share what I think about it. Because the long answer is, it's a little bit more complex. It's complicated. I'm sure you have all seen the endless Twitter threads and all the TikToks. And the thing is that you might think, oh, it's just trends come and go, right? But dude, like AI is not just a trend. It's a huge shift everywhere, and it's changing how we will approach or work as designers and work everywhere. And who here is, I'm pretty sure most of you, but who here is a designer? Raise your hands. Yep. Well, for you, AI isn't optional anymore. It's the next tool in your kit, and it's here to stay. Now, for the past couple of years, I think we have been telling ourselves this myth. I dare to say a lie that is like, oh, we have told creativity is unique to us humans. Robots are not able to do creative stuff. That's a human thing only. We only humans can be creative. But as you have seen lately, maybe not. AI is already doing sketching, doodling, illustrations, doing design research, composing music, writing TV scripts, creating characters, a lot of creative stuff. And it's not just a fun chatbot anymore. These large language models are evolving from mere tools to actual creators, which is freaking weird. It's time to question what is that thing that truly separates us from the machines, let's call it. What is that unique thing that we have when machines can make anything? When it's not just humans who can be creative. Because it's not sci-fi anymore. It's not science fiction, it's science fact that this stuff is real. And AI can already automate many tasks, and it's actually already at our level and sometimes even better. And I don't know, you use Midjourney, can do a photo shoot. Like you can tell it like an actual photo shoot. So you don't need a photographer anymore. I don't know why would you need a photographer. I'm sorry, Joseph, but I love you. But that thing just like is so good, dude. And it doesn't need a camera. It doesn't need to go and do a setting and pay for models and all that stuff. Damn. It doesn't, like I asked it recently to do a photo shoot in Oaxaca. It did a photo shoot in Oaxaca. What the hell? At night, too. I was like, wow, I didn't have to travel to Oaxaca. I didn't have to I didn't have to bring my camera and just be like, oh, dude, it's going to break. No, just did it for me right away. So, I don't know. Midjourney's doing that thing. I'm pretty sure all of you have used ChatGPT. There's even models that are even better than ChatGPT that make stuff specifically for design research. And it's like, damn, dude. DALL-E can make logos. I don't know if you've seen those. Those are not very good. So you can say like, oh, those are not that good, Pablo. And I mean, we can easily say like, oh, look at that dumb thing trying to make logos. They're weird. No, but they're starting. They're getting there. And it's I don't know. I don't think anything is sacred anymore. So, but it still lacks something. And I think it still lacks that human touch, let's call it, which I believe is essential to truly get great design. It gets good design, like right now, let's say that this is great design, this is junior level design. AI gets around here. There's still a gap, but for most clients, this is already pretty good. This is, dude, yeah, that's it. That's all I need. But truly great design, that's a thing still. Well, machine learning has the capacity to just generate ideas one after the other and automate tasks. It still lacks that ability to think outside the box. Have you noticed that it's always just like, it's creative, but it's not that creative. It's always like very conventional. And also something is that it doesn't truly empathize with users and unique needs. Empathize, right? And then, I don't know. The thing is, that's for now. Maybe that's just what sets us apart, empathy. We believe that that's just like the unique human thing. We already said creativity is not unique. Empathy, maybe, or ability to connect with people, with users on a deep emotional level, right? Well, I don't know either. I don't know how you talk to these things. They get pretty good at acting like they care, like mimicking nice responses that feel human. And if a robot makes you feel good by saying the right things, does it really matter? It's a robot. It's making you feel good. But still, I don't know. I'm an optimist. I believe in abundance. And I think of all the power that this can create. And AI is, as it becomes more sophisticated, I think that it will free us. You know, that's a utopia that like it will allow us to focus on more creative stuff that like with such abundance, like unlimited abundance, we can do whatever we want because AI just does everything else that we don't want to do, all the boring stuff. But at least for now, it's creating new markets. At least right now, without, let's say utopia, dystopia, right now what is happening, and I think is really creating markets for those designers who can use it effectively. People want that. And later, perhaps, this is maybe something though, but there might be a totally new market of the 100% organic market. And I'm not talking about tomatoes, I'm talking about you. Believe it or not, there might be a niche market for the 100% human-made designs, you know, arts and creations. They're just like, there was no AI involved. There might be some people who will value that human touch over automation. Just like some prefer organic food, or some might prefer the designs are organic. We might just put it as a stamp, you know, like it's human made, flesh and bone. But that's not enough. What I already say is happening is something else. As AI evolves, our roles as designers would shift. And I don't know if you're noticing and you're seeing that, but we're slowly becoming less ICs. Who knows what IC is? Okay, IC is individual contributor. Am I right? Okay. Individual, the one who pushes the pixels, you know, the one who actually produces the stuff. And I don't know, maybe we'll be more creative directors, guiding the AI, telling it what to do, which I believe is great. Again, we can let the AI do the bulk work and we can focus on more meaningful stuff, or the pixels we really care about. So for me, I don't know, the future is bright, but we'll need to adapt and embrace change to succeed in this new landscape. Because it's not just us, this is coming as a tsunami. It's not just design, it's a workforce transformation. It's affecting all professions. It's coming for everyone. Lawyers, doctors, no one is immune. AI is changing everything. And I don't know if we all saw the movies, we all saw, maybe read fiction, and we all read that it was going to be robots, right? Like replacing us. And well, all the blue collar jobs, like assembly lines, factories, that sort of thing. But I think we got it wrong. It's actually, plot twist, it's actually AI intellect, the one that is replacing us. So all the white collar jobs, all of us who we thought that we were very safe with our computers on our remote jobs. I think those are the first ones to go, not so much the ones in the factories. So surprise, it's not manual labor, it's intellectual labor, intellectual tasks. So from legal work, management, financing, copywriting, social media, design. So I don't know. So far, it seems like no job is completely safe, but perhaps AI isn't here to replace us. Let's be, again, optimists. I want to be optimists and say it's here to augment us. It's a force multiplier for our creative skills. So we can start seeing AI not so much as a threat, but more as a design body. It could be the one who opens doors to creativity we haven't even thought of yet. So what can we do? All of you sitting here, what are the next steps, Pablo? What can we do? Well, you gotta adapt, baby. You gotta learn, be curious, and really just start messing with those things. That's the new job requirement. So being open, constant learning, don't see it as, just a phase that's going to pass. No, this is not a phase. So don't look at those Twitter, ignore the Twitter threads, but click on some of those and then get lost in the rabbit hole of that crap. It's because, I don't know, that it seems like that's the new normal. And everybody, a lot of very important companies, very intelligent people are working on making this a reality, on making design so easy that you don't need a designer. It's happening. So before we could all be like, oh, I learned this new skill and that's it. I'm set for life. No, we have to have a skill. And the more you know, the more valuable you become. And the thing is that AI is a generalist too. It can do anything. And I don't know. We can think, hey, it's a war, humans versus machines. But like I was saying, it's not Terminator who's coming after us. It's this thing that so far has been so nice. Have you talked to ChatGPT? Anything. You can say, you're the worst, ChatGPT, and it will say, yes, I'm the worst. You are correct. Even when you say, you were wrong, yes, I was wrong. Have you seen that? It's always trying to satisfy us. So far, no Terminators. And I think it's going to be like that, human plus machine. The future isn't about a war with them. It's something that it's more of a blend. So we can choose to see AI as not the enemy, but as a collaborator that enhances for human skills. And I don't know, for me, the future is bright. But not because it's bright, I'm going to sit as like, okay, it's so good. No. It's bright for those who adapt and for those who learn, for those who understand that this is the new normal. And that's it. So, I don't know, embrace the change and thanks. That's it. And okay, that was me. I talked too much. You're bored. Muchas gracias. So now, let's give it for Vicki. Vicki is going to change her computer, so she just needs to do the living room. But while she does that, why don't we do a Q&A? Is that good? Yeah, with me?
People in the back can't hear, so maybe we try to squish more people to fight.
Okay, so the people who are in the back, you can either, if you want to hear, you can either come. Oh, well, they cannot hear me. So I'm giving instructions, they cannot hear me. You can come over here, and it's going to be a little bit easier. You can also go up here. What if we do that? Yeah. So, hey, anyone who's in the back and cannot hear, go through the kitchen. Go through the kitchen, and we'll guide you. Sophie, ¿los puedes... que se vayan allá arriba y que escuchen de arriba?
Pablo, there's some space over there.
And there's a couple of spaces here, and
Clouds.
there's 2 spaces. Come on, over here. Can you hear? No? You're good? Okay. Those guys are fresh right now. Ah, man, I kind of envy it. Okay, so... ¿Ya te conectas? Connected? Okay, cool. Oh, you're already connected. Okay. Nice.
I'm just shorter than you. Yeah, good, great. You guys still see me? All right, let me see in the front. Okay. So I'm gonna apologize in advance for the slides. I drew them, but I'm not an illustrator. Too loud? No? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Pablo. Where'd he go? Good? Okay. Hi, everyone. How you doing? Thanks for coming. Thanks for, crowding in here on such a rainy night. I think Pablo already said, but I'm Vicki. I am a designer. I've worked at places like Headspace, Spotify, before that Lyft, Google. And before that, I actually was working in research and I studied behavioral science. So sometimes I'll get a little sciencey, for better or for worse. And right now I'm taking a sabbatical, AKA unemployed, but I like to call it sabbatical from full-time work to work on this personal project of mine, which is an illustrated book to help people make better decisions, like life decisions, big ones and little ones. And I just put the Patreon here if you're interested in following along. I'm trying to share my journey. But I say this not to promote, but to say that like behavioral science is just a passion of mine. And I love thinking about behavior, how we change our behavior, how we make decisions, why we make the decisions we do. And you'll see that in this talk. It's kind of about what Pablo was talking about, in that it's about technology and design and the future. But I'm curious about how we make decisions, how we make product decisions, how we decide what to improve or to get rid of in those products that we work on. And then even more zoomed out, like how do we decide what to even build in the first place? How do we decide, like, why are we putting all this money into AI, like what Pablo was talking about? What do we invest all this time and resource and CPU in? And you work at enough big companies and you find that it's mostly defined by metrics. If you listen to any of my past talks, I kind of have like a gripe with metrics, but also by leadership who decides the metrics, and by capitalism, which is kind of like the thing behind everything. But they're also decided by users, because we're the ones using them. And we're kind of sometimes unaware that we're making these big product decisions. And in the end, I think there's a question of like, are they what we want? Are they what's best for us? And are the outcomes serving us? And if not, like, how can we, as the people who design this stuff, change the human experience by changing how we think about technology and design and how all that shapes our behavior? So that's all the context, if that makes sense. And I'm going to zoom out. This talk is going to feel a little like, what the hell is she talking about? It's a little bit, that's why I drew the sun and the space. I will say it's in like the theoretical realm. If you want, I'll even say it's in the metaphysical realm, because it's a little bit about like time and space and existence. So just, if anything doesn't make sense, ask me later, stick with me. It's a little bit of a journey. And I'm going to use these concepts as like a crutch to get us to remember, like when we go home or go back to work and we go and design, to remember to zoom out, right? Because we don't want to be that. We want to kind of be here, zoom out, because at that altitude is when I think we can really start to reframe our default points of view. And that's what I'm all about. So I'm going to start off, there's going to be a couple chunks. I want to start off with today's technology. It should feel pretty familiar, but I'm going to, again, zoom out and look at it through the lens, not of like iterations and metrics and revenue, but of the lens of human experience. And the questions I want to all of us to kind of ask ourselves is, how are these tools benefiting us? What are they taking away from us? And how have they changed like how we interact and what we want, like what our values are? And so I picked three. I should have done like an iPhone camera. I don't know. Maybe no one, imagine an iPhone camera or an Android camera, whatever you use. Most of us have kind of thought about this, right? If you've been at a birthday party, or the reason why Pablo put all your phones in a bag is because you kind of can't, there's a lot of Black Mirror episodes on this, right? You can't get away from it. You're just like, there's like a ton of, are you even there, right? Or are you filming? And cameras are great because they help us record snippets or memories of our lives. And for me, it's true, there's tons of trips, like earlier memories. There's regular old weeks that I would have forgotten without my iPhone photos. And it's so nice to see the memories, like the actual memories feature. They let us share, RIP, social media. They let us reminisce. It's kind of sweet. But I'm going to do a series of these. When you see the wiggly, those are like the ripple effects, the unintended, like second order effects. I feel like some of the ripple effects of just an always on camera are that they reframe our lived experience as memories to be recorded. And then the inverse of that is then we're cutting out these specific moments from our whole day, our whole life to save. And so when we look back, it's not our lived experience, it's our captured experience. And then beyond that, like photos take us out of the moment, right? We're trying to like watch the show, watch it through here. We're trying to not move it too much. And then the tricky part is when we leave them at home right now, when you're here right now and you see a really cool slide and you want to take a picture of it, you get FOMO because you're like, oh, I could have taken a picture. That would have been a great story. And so you're kind of like in this different reality altogether before we had the option. That is, it's not better or worse. It's just different with different considerations. So same with Zoom. We love Zoom or do we hate Zoom? We just have to Zoom, right? It's part of life. And Zoom is great because it lets us talk to people around the world, Mexico City, Tokyo, Amsterdam. We can see actually the faces of people that we're talking to. And it feels much more intimate than a phone call in some ways, or certainly more than an email. And it really allowed us to work from home and stay sane during the pandemic. It saved us from like isolation. I don't know how many of you guys played like 1,000 games on Zoom, for better or for worse. But Zoom exhaustion is like a real thing. And I want to dig into that because it feels a little counterintuitive. You think this trajectory of like, get more human, show more of the body, show the face, it should feel better, right? But actually, Zoom fatigue, I think, is caused by this idea that like you're this head floating, you're looking to the camera, but you're not making eye contact. And then you can't move around. Like you can't move around like when you're on the phone, take a walk, like fiddle, like do your dishes. Like you're stuck. You're this like floating head and you're kind of glued to your laptop. So in 2008, this technologist way back, that was like, 20 years ago, Linda Stone coined something called email apnea, which is this feeling of holding your breath when you're focusing on what you're doing online. I know you all can relate to this because I feel like I do it all the time where I'm just like, and then you finally breathe and you're like, oh shit, it wasn't breathing. But beyond that, Zoom really blurs personal boundaries of like, it has allowed us to blur these boundaries of what is work, what is home. I've definitely called into a meeting from the shower. Why? I don't know. I was like, oh, I got back from the gym, I'm going to call in. And home becomes work and work becomes home. And the last one here of like our present day ubiquitous technology are apps. They are convenient, so helpful. They solve these problems. Sometimes we didn't even know we had, right? Like I'm fine doing my laundry. And they allow us to do anything from everywhere, whether it's like a red light, maybe you're waiting in line. Everything is like just a tap away. But you know, when you're using Google Maps, you no longer in a new city, you no longer have this experience of wandering, getting lost, maybe asking a stranger for directions or wayfinding. Food delivery, you stop cooking, it's too easy to order in, or maybe it's just more tasty, but you kind of lose that nudge towards this shared experience and kind of like seeing what goes into your food. Yes. So it's not to say, I'm not saying apps are bad. I'm not a Luddite. What I'm saying is when we talk about the conversation about like how we should build and what should come next, we often don't think about the ripple effects of these apps, which to me is a loss of autonomy, which just means like our ability to make a choice because the convenience kind of makes the decision for us, right? Like we start to choose what is easy instead of what we want. And we kind of lose our ability to wait or to be bored or to do things by hand. And that way, the technology is shaping kind of who we are. And I don't know if we always think about that. So that was the present. I'm going to go back in time now to past technology. And I think it was Winston Churchill, or maybe he was quoting someone else who said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." And I want to talk about analog technologies because if we can look back that far and kind of think about like, oh, wow, these have essentially become invisible, it can help us observe more about how our behavior, how our social dynamics, and how we think, our cognitive processes have changed. So the first one is paper or papel, is that right? So it's paper technology. It might not really feel like it at first, but before paper, we weren't able to like write down our thoughts, maybe on the wall, but if it was raining, goodbye, right? And so with paper, we can consider more ideas than what we can actually hold in our working memory. It's a pretty subtle technology, right? It lets us record our histories, record what we learn, and then when we do that, we can like pass them on to others. We can knowledge share. We can share them with people we'll never ever meet in future generations. And so this type of knowledge sharing wasn't really possible before paper. But when everything is recorded, how do we know what to give our attention to? What do we remember? Like if you've used the internet or if you've been to a library, it's hard to even know like where to go, where to begin. And it often feels like there's too much information. And because of that, it's hard to know what's meaningful, what's true. And then the person who writes things down, the scribe or the historian, they become like the decider of truth. And it starts to get kind of complicated. And so as we've written more things down, we lose our practice of like relying on our memory and relying on like speaking and kind of using that as a litmus for what's important. The next one, it's funny because we had a table in here and now it's gone. Thank you to Pablo and the team. But this is another analog technology, a table. A piece of furniture might even feel less like technology, but tables, they bring us together for dining. We gather around them to socialize. We can write on them. We can kind of, whatever traditions, discussions, it's kind of a place to work and study and write and get things done. But when you have a room with a table, just like this one had one, it's not flexible, right? You guys all couldn't have sat in the way you are now or even moved around like you were. And they kind of encourage sedentary behavior. I've been guilty of sitting at a desk for 8 hours, just kind of zoned in. And if you're at a square table, there's dynamics. If you're at the head of the table, you're kind of in a position of power. So the last one I'm going to run through is the clock, because we've been talking a lot about time and the future and the past. And the irony with the clock, I don't know if you all know, but there's a lot of books about time right now. But the clock was originally used to help monks keep their daily rhythm of prayer, like monks, like mindfulness meditation monks. But now it's come to structure so much of our lives because a clock keeps time, but it also divides up time. It like chops it up into little pieces, minutes, seconds. And while that has helped us standardize and streamline across different countries, catch a train, meet up with a friend at 12:15 on the dot, like we are able to create schedules with a clock, but at what cost, I guess? So living by the clock kind of means that we can measure time, we can measure work and leisure, we can measure like productivity, but it also means that like, I think there's a little bit of anxiety now when we like take time off. Are we making the most of our time? When we're just sitting somewhere being bored, or do we be bored anymore? Are we in the moment? And we also have moved a little bit away from like our circadian. You know, we wake up at 8 a.m. every day, but the sun kind of comes up at a slightly different time every day. And these are all just interesting second order effects that maybe are unavoidable, but they're certainly worth thinking about in the grand scheme of things. Okay, is everyone still with me? There's a lot of examples. Okay, so now I kind of talked about the past, talked about the present. I want to connect those two, which is to say the simpler analog stuff to the stuff we use today, so that we can kind of see those themes that I was starting with. How do they change how we feel? How do they change how we interact with each other? And how do they change the human experience? So paper and the camera have fundamentally changed how we record and remember things. Like, what are memories now? Tables, and I don't mean to scapegoat Zoom, but like video conferencing have changed how we gather, how we meet with people. And clocks, and we'll just say generally apps or iPhone apps, Android apps have changed how we experience time and how time kind of feels.
Yeah, like
And so here's where we're starting to get a little spacey. When we move forward, when we're only looking forward, what's the next thing on the roadmap? What's the next iteration? And we're kind of barreling towards the future at this top speed. We don't always pay attention to these ripples, those unintended effects. Maybe we do a little bit of tweak it. Maybe we like address it in like the bug smashing, but we don't, like, no one's thought about like, hey, I guess there's standing desks, but you know, we don't actually meaningfully solve for these problems. So here is where I want you to get even more loose with me for a minute. If you want to shake it out a little. Okay, so instead of seeing time as this linear, one-dimensional, like one-directional thing, only moving forward, what if we thought about time as the fourth dimension in our third-dimensional world? If you're familiar, this would be like, if you're familiar with geometry, this forms a block of space, like volume. And in this space, if we were to think about the present as just one slice, this kind of black thing I drew in the middle, one slice of this big block, where the other stuff, the space, volume around this slice, they're still there. They're coexisting. They're equally existent. And this block of space, we might call it the block universe. In here, time is no longer just ticking away. It's not like never to be revisited. Time is more like physical space, like we call space-time. I don't want to say that. But all of the events that we think about, past, present, and future, they're treated as equally real and permanent. So kind of like cities around the world are in different time zones, but they're all there. None of them disappear when the sun sets. And so here I tried to draw, holding hands. The past isn't gone, still there. We're holding the hand. The future isn't yet to come. We're all here simultaneously. So everyone following-ish, okay? So you don't need to be like an expert in metaphysics, but this theory is supported by quantum physics, like it's real science. But most of us don't think about that every day. So it can kind of feel outside of our conventional lived experiences to feel like reality. It's like, okay, that's science, but this is my day-to-day. The boss wants these things. But if we can suspend our disbelief, like as this is a separate thing for a moment, if we can think of the past, present, and future as like coexisting, holding hands permanently, could it change how we build technology? Which in turn would change the human experience because we can't escape it, right? So now I want to show you how we can kind of hypothetically take this perspective, the block universe idea, and apply it to specific examples that I kind of have thought a lot about 2 years at a time. First one, Spotify. So when I worked at Spotify, we thought about music, audio, podcasts, and our mission was to help artists live off their music. And so that linear timeline for Spotify kind of looks like this. We started with records. You could only have so many records in your house. We listened to albums. And like, I don't know, you would kind of listen to the whole album because that was the form. And we all kind of had the same sense of what's popular because the radio stations and things like that. In the present, we're in the age of streaming. You have the equivalent of like a warehouse of songs in your pocket. There's something for every day. And at least Spotify, they've tried to make it really easy for you to find that. You can listen to like very niche artists, artists you've never heard of, and you can even like connect with them sometimes. And in the future, we're headed towards this like audio companion. That's their vision. Something that's like always on in your pocket, can intelligently anticipate your needs, soundtrack to your life kind of thing. Like you're the main character. It chooses for you so you don't have to like go through the burden of choosing. But here I'll try to draw ripple effects on the timeline. Some of the ripple effects that we're already starting to experience are loss of silence, maybe displacement from present and natural sound, just feeling in your surroundings. And also artists aren't really making a living from streaming because No one can find their music in this like huge warehouse ocean of options. And so are we doing what we said we wanted, or are we just making money? Unless you're Taylor Swift or Beyonce. These ripples, they kind of dilute the value of every song made and in turn for us, every minute listened to. So, block universe. Let's imagine the block universe. Again, the place that exists in concert, get that concert with past and present, where we're more intentional. And maybe in this universe, sure, we still use the fancy AI, ML, whatever, but we recommend like one perfect album for you each week, or maybe it's each month, you choose. And then maybe you would effectively be sponsoring that artist with your subscription that month. And it's not the solution, it's like a thought exercise, but that really nudges you to listen deeply to their albums. Maybe when you're done with that, you can still enjoy silence or your surroundings. But overall, like, does it encourage you to have balance and sort of value the moments when you are listening, but also when you aren't? Because that doesn't exist in Spotify right now when you aren't listening. You know, it's not the solution, but it's an idea of how we could, in keeping with the past and the present, solve for some of our own choice paralysis that we all feel with everything today, and this like unending need for like newness and a loss for attention. They kind of call it the hedonic treadmill. And then I'll do one more example, how to use the block. At Headspace, our mission was to bring health and happiness to all users. I can say this because I don't work at any of these companies anymore. We started with meditation. Vipassana is the practice of sitting silently for a weekend, a week, just like a long retreat of silence. This is hard. Like, it doesn't appeal to everyone, and it doesn't suit people who have a busy life. You can't leave for a week. Maybe you have children or a home situation with roommates. You can't even sit quietly. So Headspace, we created this like gym for your mind, 10 minutes a day, and not even every day, like 5 or 6 days a week. They started to call this a minimum viable dose. Like, they've kind of squished it down to the smallest bit so everyone can have access to mindfulness. And the future that they painted was actually kind of similar to Spotify. It was this always on support, like a best meditation teacher friend in your pocket. As soon as you wake up, there's a wake up like thing. If you've ever watched the Wake Up by Headspace, if you had a difficult conversation with your boss in the afternoon, they're there for you too. If you can't fall asleep at night, same thing. There's something for you at every sort of beat of the day. But again, if we're going down this path, some of the ripple effects are we creating like a quality mindfulness practice that you can actually commit deeply to? Or have we externalized and minimized mindfulness to like such a small amount that it's like kind of easy to check off your list, but not to do in earnest, to integrate into your life? Because in Headspace, there's no offboarding. Some of you might know that I designed the onboarding, but there's no offboarding, right? There's no self-reliance model. There's no moment where you're like, cool, I'm done with the app. I can sit here quietly on my own. So if we imagine the block universe, where all these kind of states exist in harmony, maybe there's a future where you can graduate from Headspace once you hit some comfortability or proficiency, where you then maybe you come back as a mentor, where you're helping beginners learn how to meditate, or you build a community around what you learn. It's very similar to a monastery, which is like sort of this past moment that still exists. And so in this way, the block universe is kind of just like a mental model to help us remember what the past did well, like hold that with care, while also making space for the future. It's not this one way, everything in the trash. So what I'm going to leave you is this. This is not just like think into the future. There's a lot of talk about long-termism right now, or moving away from short-termism. I think that's amazing. If that's what you take away, that's a really good start. But what I want us to think about is a little more, treating these realities as simultaneous, existing together, and of equal importance. Just like if you were sitting at a table with a child or an elderly person and you found out that was actually past versions of you. If we can become more familiar with the block universe as a valid and useful concept for design, I feel like this will help us take the long view, which is what I called this talk. And I hope that it'll help us design and build all of these much better possible past, present, and future states that really create the human experience that we actually want for all time. So, thank you for listening. I think that was a solid 30 minutes. I'm here if you guys want to do a little more reading. Hannah Arendt talks a lot about the human condition. Eric Wargo is big on dreams, precognition, time loops. Definitely should read that one. L.M. Sarkassis has something called 41 questions that we should ask ourselves concerning technology. A lot of it was inspired by that. His blog is The Convivial Society. And Yancey Strickler just has a great book that does the version of this in kind of 2D called This Could Be Our Future. Thank you.
So we're gonna do. Oh, Vicki, we're still. You don't go. We still have some questions. Yeah, is that cool? Like let's do a quick Q&A. Now let's turn up the lights. Actually, now maybe we can see each other's faces now. Bright. There you go. Okay, cool. A little bit more light. So,
You guys have pizza? No? Okay. It's an American drink from the 90s that produced even so.
okay. So, that's for you, and this is yours. Still yours. Yeah, you can. So,
Oh, great.
then I can.
Yeah. Closer? Okay.
That's good.
Yeah. What do you think? Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. Oh, God. Okay, great.
Okay, cool. It's podcast style. So, okay, so we forgot to send you the link to ask questions.
Nice.
Sorry.
Real time.
But I do have some questions, and maybe we can start that way. And you start thinking of questions, so we could just like get some of your questions right away. But I do want to, well, hold on. I made some notes while you were talking and stuff, and I don't know. Hold on. Let me get into this because I wanted to know you worked at very interesting places, and Headspace is, well, it's, I think when I met you,
I was there.
you were there, and when I met you, that was the first time I knew about Headspace, but I don't know. I was a little bit skeptical.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I was skeptical not of Headspace. I was skeptical of meditation, of you specifically.
Yeah.
I looked at you from afar. It's like, I don't trust her. Yeah. No, I just like, here's the thing. I'm from the north of Mexico. I don't know how people are here, Mexicans here, but like in the north of Mexico, we are like, meditation. That's for Mumbo
hippies.
jumbo. Yeah, it's for
That's
hippies.
for
And that's like, but like, it's a very toxic way of thinking. Just like, oh, mental health. Like, come on, get a grip. You know. So I know. That's how I grew up, and that's how
I know us. I'm Taiwanese immigrant. Same. My mom was like, "Don't talk about your feelings."
Yeah, exactly. Like, push them down.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. At least more as a boy, growing up in Mexico, you're not allowed to talk about your feelings because, well, only girls do that.
Yeah.
Come on, Pablo.
Stop.
Pablo.
Oh, toxic masculinity.
Yeah, but it's like, well, we grew up with that, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
and I I think I tried to deconstruct all of that stuff that was put by Catholicism in my head and my parents, but I got to know you, and you put this app, and me, like all that stuff that is this kid is like meditation, whatever. You put this thing, we're all sitting around. And holy crap, I started crying, dude.
Yeah.
Like first time I met her, she's like she's like, hey, let's get into a meditation space and stuff. This was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, more, I think.
Yeah, more. And I started crying. I didn't know I needed that so bad. It was like she was like, "You're okay?" What's going on? It's like so I realized like, oh, dude, like there's something here, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not just the app, but it's more like, no, there's something in you that you haven't been able to touch, and you haven't been able to let out. Anyway, on getting here is how do you design Headspace, and how were you, and you were on the onboarding,
Mhm.
and how are you thinking about people like me, like people who are skeptical, and also just, well, I suppose we're a little bit, at least in the north of Mexico, we're a little bit behind, like also on the whole, I don't know, the mental health and mindfulness and all that stuff. Like, how do you design for people, like for the diverse group of people?
Yeah, good question. I mean, a lot of it was the brand team, which kind of is relevant because of all of your sort of illustration and branding here. But the first step was to make it not feel woo-woo. It does look weird. It is kind of childish. I think that's, some people like it, some people don't. But it looks quite different from Calm, which does feel like, the drop of the pebble and the ripples or whatever. So that was one way to make it more relatable. And also the characters look kind of weird. We were trying to like say, hey, your mind, it's weird. There's weird shit going on in there. Like, we're going to try to make these characters look as weird as possible to like represent that weirdness, so that like, it's almost like when you listen to, I don't know why I keep using Taylor Swift, I think because she was still here. Like when you listen to that stuff that's so emotional, you're like, oh, it's okay to be sad. And same with the characters. It's like, they're so weird. It's like, it's okay that I feel like stabbing my cat or whatever. I don't have a cat. So that was one way. And then the other way was making it much more like not religious. That's why they coined it like the gym for your mind. That's why it was like, you won't hear any gongs or anything. And that's why, at least for the onboarding, we tried to make it feel like building a routine, like pair it with brushing your teeth, like pair it with dinner. And to that, so that it would feel a little more like science, because meditation is backed by science, and like the benefits are good for anyone, just like you would go to a gym or work out or eat healthily. And so framing it as like taking care of your mind versus like being a soft, mushy male or something, like we were trying to just take that framing and make it more just like warm and friendly for folks.
Yeah, well, it worked. And I think I love what you're saying about the illustrations and the characters and everything, because it did feel like the colors were, it didn't feel like that other side where meditation can go into, where or at least the side that I suppose like more stereotypical Pablo thought meditation was, whereas like more like the religious side and more like, oh, this is a cult. What is going on there?
Yeah,
but
your head.
yeah, so it worked, and it's the power of doodles and illustration and branding and all that stuff, right? Yeah. Oh, there you go. So now you were talking about like it's science, and I like that you repeat that, and it's like a gym. But so tell us, how do you measure that then? Like, how do you say this person meditated well? This person is mindful. Like, what is the success metrics that you had in the back, if you can tell us?
Yeah, no, so this was my main reason for leaving TBH. I mean, our success metrics were the same as any other subscription company, content company, right? Retention, 2-week retention, like, I don't know, drop off, all the like, you can tell I've not been at a company for like 6 months. Those metrics versus like, I gave a talk called umami metrics because I thought we should measure subjective well-being. I thought we should measure heart rate variability. I thought we should measure things that are indicators of long-term health. And we did it because they don't want, I mean, it's not that they don't want to. One, I think their question was like, how can you? I think it's pretty easy now with this. But they also didn't want to because that's harder, right? It's harder to be actually responsible for someone's health.
Yeah, like I used to work at Udemy, which is a learning company, right? And it's courses and all that. And we started getting into the question of like, how do you measure people actually learning? Like, did they actually get that new skill into their heads? And did they actually do that thing that they thought they were going to do after taking a course? But it was so hard. And we spent so long trying to measure that. And then at the end, it's like the VPs and everyone, they would just cave in into, no, just measure, like, are they buying more? You know, put a button so they can just like buy another one as soon as they buy one.
Yeah.
And it's not like, hold on, but they just got one course. Like, wouldn't you want them to finish that course before they get into another one? No.
Yeah.
Like, pack them together, you know? Yeah. And so thank you for the honest answer. Is the reality sometimes when you're in a company that is like more if it is a startup than it's VC backed and it's like, hey, we need to show numbers, right? And
so that's why I tried to come up with that concept of umami metrics, or metrics for that which is hard to measure. Or do you know what umami is?
Everybody, yeah. Umami, yeah.
It's like the fifth. How many tastes are there? One, two,
I think it's let's say the sixth. Yeah, I think it's the fifth. Yeah.
Anyway, I called it that because it's kind of hard to describe, right? When you're having something that has, I guess it's called savory, but when you have something that has like that, like je ne sais quoi, right? You're like, ooh, this hits. But it's not easy to measure. You wouldn't be able to say like across different cuisines, you wouldn't be able to say this is what makes it umami. And I felt that way about metrics, or the ones that matter. And same with humans, like someone can do well on the test, they can like be good on paper, but you meet them in person and they can't, like, they're not, like you were saying, empathetic, communicate, like this like harder to measure thing that isn't captured by like tests and like this stuff. What I say is what's easy to measure kind of doesn't matter, right? And so everything we do is hard, right? Like the AI shit is hard. So like, why don't we spend our time? It doesn't matter that it's hard to measure. We should just get better at it. But instead, we're like, nah, next.
Do it because it's easy. We do it. That was my impression of JFK, right?
Yeah.
That?
Yeah.
Do it because it's hard. Okay, sorry.
Was it a good impression?
No, that was bad. Horrible. Thank you, though. So I had like, does anyone have any question? Like
Audience, send them.
Come on.
Throw them up in an airplane.
I'll keep. Okay, we have. We don't have a. Raise your voice. Come on. Right.
Stand up.
Stand up. Stand up. Come on. There's no cameras or anything. Come on. Nobody's recording you. What? That.
Do a dance.
Yeah.
Sing it. Just kidding.
We need to be fat.
Thank you for your question. Do you want to?
Yeah, let's repeat it for the people in the back. Do you want to repeat it?
What I heard was, how do you like take a bunch of disparate things, whether it be ideas or knowledge, and put it together into this like concept? I guess my question would be, do you mean for work or just the general idea? Gotcha. So if I'm hearing correct, it's almost like, how did I come up with the idea of the talk versus how do you apply the block universe to your work, right? Okay, we'll answer both.
I heard like how do you even practice it as a skill, right?
I mean, for the former, if anyone cares, I think it's about reading or learning like dabbling in areas that are not your own. Like none of what I talked about was if you go to a product design blog or if you go on Dribble or wherever. Where are people reading these days? They're not on. It's not on there, right? It's textbooks of the past. It's like kind of in more of the periphery of what's interesting to me. And then, you know, I kind of think of my brain as this weird zero gravity centrifugal place where everything kind of smashes together and eventually makes sense. But I think what you were actually asking was, how do you think in 4D day to day? Yeah. So the example I wanted to use was like that one of humans, because the long self concept is actually this idea that like, it feels like a sci-fi movie when you talk about it, but if you were to actually sit next to your older self, like you had to hold their wrinkled hand and you had to say, hey, I want to do this today, but will you give me 10 years of your life? Or you had to hold like baby hand and be like, hey, is it okay if I like ruin, like, you know, or no, I should say, here, look at this phone for 3 hours a day. Or you wouldn't, right? Like, people don't let their babies and kids look at their phone for that many hours a day. And I think when you imagine, like, actually put yourself in a situation where you can feel like a human interacting with other humans, even if you do or don't believe those other humans are you can try to create like metaphors where you can actually understand the concepts. Or sitting at it, that's why I kept drawing them with holding hands, like sitting in place with somewhere you can touch, someone that's crying or something. It's quite different than just like imagining points in space-time. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you. Okay, yes, please. Oh, yeah, and by the way, si lo quieren hacer en español, hagan la pregunta en español si se sienten más cómodos y yo se la puedo traducir a Vicky también. Just out there, in case you are like, oh shit, I don't want to speak English. So, lo pueden hacer en español, okay? Yeah.
I sort of listened to both of your talks and they kind of reminded me of innovation in the sense of fast-pacing innovation in the world. And I don't know where I heard it, but that innovation for the sake of innovation might backfire. And I just would like your take on any of that statement. Innovation for the sake of innovation.
Yeah, it's like that. Hello. ¿Sí se escucha? Hello. Okay, there you go. It's like that meme of Jurassic Park when the guy asks himself like, they were wondering if we could do it, but they never wonder if we should, right? And I think there's a lot of stuff that is not just on the design side, that is like we have these existential questions right now. Like, I don't know who here saw the movie Oppenheimer. Hey, Oppenheimer. Okay, so I don't know. Hey, suddenly we do have atomic bombs. Oh yeah, right? We do have these things that can just destroy the world, like at any moment. And we have been living with these things for, 70 years now? And it's now normal. And it's like, that shouldn't be normal. We shouldn't be accepting that, like, one person has the power to press a button. Or I don't know if it's a button or a code. I don't know what it is. Apparently it's a code, the launch code. And then suddenly, like, start something that just destroys the world. And it's not just like, oh, okay. Oh, Mila. She's like, I wanna ask a question. Ask me the mic. Where's my food? You thought about the food. So I think like that power to just like where was I? Yeah. Suddenly we had this, and it was just this race because like, those guys will be able to do it. We should get there first, right? And I think we are now at that same moment right now with AI, I think, where like now we're in this race and these companies are in a race to just like, get it as many users as possible, as fast as possible, the best as possible. And even open sourcing it, putting it out there so we get there as quick as possible. And who gets to win the AI race, right? And you can say that OpenAI is right now, it's just like kind of winning, right? But like, well, Google, Meta is they're behind, and I think that it's not going to be possible for us to just like say,
Oh
oh no,
no, Mila.
she's worried about the race. It's impossible for now, like for us to just like say, hey, hold on. I think they tried it. I think a lot of people try signing something like, hey, let's slow this down. Let's think about this. No, because there's a lot of interest behind this, and then one of this, like you mentioned, is capitalism. It's just like we need power, and whoever has this thing first, and whoever has the most powerful AI is the one who with the most power. But this thing, there's so many things that can go wrong with this. In the wrong hands, it can go wrong. So I don't know. Like, what was your question? It was something about this, right?
Innovating for
like
innovation.
Innovation for innovation. And let's go. Let's say that not even just like world-ending scenarios like AI or doomsday scenarios with like atomic bombs, but even just a company, right? You were talking about like, I was asking about the metrics. And the metrics usually are about growth. We have to grow. We have to keep going higher, man, more and more and more. And it's this hunger that never ends. This monster always wants more. And but a qué costo? Right? And at what cost? and the cost can be, well, like what you're saying, that suddenly like we're hooked to this thing and it's just like draining our minds, and suddenly we're all becoming zombies, like that are just like linked to this. And we all worked on this. We all worked on our hooks and our mechanism and our variable rewards to just like suddenly get them hooked into that thing. Because because even when it's a good thing about mindfulness and about well-being, yeah, but we're working on getting your phone attached to your eyes or your things here as much as possible. I'm not saying I'm immune to that. We do that in our company too, because like we have VCs and they want to see more and more. The answer to your question is like, I don't know, dude. It's so bad that it's like we're in this state, and it's. I mean, I can say to all of you, we can be the brakes. We can be the ones that are just like, hey, hold on, we don't have to. Like you tried with your mommy metrics, and I'm pretty sure that you are in this constant battle every day with your product manager, or I don't know with whom, but you try to do good, right? And you try to measure the good things. You try to put that button in a way that is not there to just like get you back into the loop, but you're also fighting a PM that like wants to, that their metrics are about getting people back as much as possible. So I don't know, you go do and put a stop to this, all of us. And
I have an answer.
Oh, okay, please, because I'm just rambling.
I thought about this a lot because at these companies, right, I ran into that where I was like, okay, exactly what Pablo described, like we see where we're going, we don't really want to go there, but we feel like we have to because of the incentives. The incentives aren't aligned with our values. But us as a single person or even any one company can't change it because it's kind of like switching over to a new thing or like jumping off like a cliff. Like no one wants to be the first. Everyone wants to be like part of a critical mass. And so what I found is like kind of like with the metrics thing is to do a little switcheroony. So if you see like where in your company what their vision is, and it's quite straightforward, it's like we want more or whatever, you just come up with a better vision, a vision that is more aligned with the values that you care about, and then you kind of reverse engineer it so that it hits their metrics. And that sounds kind of vague, but for example, at Spotify, I was working on podcasts and podcast ads and ads in general and the free experience. And they're trying to put ads everywhere, like every app is now, right? We was like embedded ads, like put the ads is kind of feels again like that Black Mirror where he's sitting in that room with the ads all around and the thing with the ads. It's like, for fuck's sake, like too many ads. And so I kind of I created this presentation where I kind of pulled up there's this Muji hotel in Ginza in Tokyo where you don't even go into a Muji store. You just stay. You have a beautiful night in the hotel. There's no shelves. There's no nothing. And you just kind of experience Muji. And maybe you buy some stuff. Maybe you don't. But at the very least, you've had like a night's rest with some stuff. Maybe you take some home. And so I showed this to them. I was like, we should aim for here. Like, this is where we should go, not Black Mirror. And then I kind of tell them, and then you kind of have to reverse align the roadmaps, right? Like, this is how we integrate storytelling into our current features. This is how we do that. And it's just like, it's kind of helping them see where they don't know they want to go. It's kind of like working with like a kid or a teenager. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
About that,
But
I have a question about how after the pandemic,
after COVID and the pandemic, how technology, which started in the 90s, had a reverse in our daily lives, and how medical companies or pharmaceutical companies use the technology or the pills like antidepressants or like this. I'm very close to mental health issues, so Headspace was one of the main I don't know, technology apps that actually changed the life of many people after the crisis. So how technology and medicine come together, and how applications like Headspace would, or a medical application for mental health is, I see that it's totally necessary. And Headspace is the first application that actually started doing that. How, with which new application we could do as designers or app designers that would be helpful for terms of mental health conditions for anxiety or depression?
yeah, oh my God, there's so many. Yeah, but okay, I'll talk about a few that excite me. Because it's tricky, right? Like, I think there's a lot of dialogue about like AI. Like, if I've actually been playing a little bit with, if you go to, I think it's Hey Pi like the number. A company called Inflection makes that AI, and it's actually really nice. It's like everything you ask it, it ends back with a question, and it's quite thoughtful. It's not like a human, but what's cool is you can talk to it about something that, like, say you've asked your best friend like already 10 times, like, what do you think I should do? And they're like, I don't want to hear about your stupid, I already told you what to do. Like, you should move or you should break up. The cool thing about some of these applications, because they're not human, is that you can be a little more, whatever, vulnerable, candid, like honest, or they're up at 3 a.m. And don't care if you message them 10 times in that night. And so I think it's cool to think of them as like kind of what Pablo was saying, augmenting an actual therapist, but not in place of a therapist. Another cool application I heard of a while ago was, I think it was called Freud. It was more of like a VR experience. So a lot of times if you've been to therapy, if you've seen a psychotherapist, or you've done any, like, I think it's called internal family systems, this idea that we have a lot of people in our brain, like aggressive Vicki, or peacemaker Vicki, or achiever Vicki. And when we're in conflict, they're all like arguing with each other, or even young Vicki and old Vicki, like, drive our behavior, because these versions of are like talking to each other. And in this VR experience, you could sit down and talk to yourself, looking at yourself and talk to yourself, or maybe it's your mom, or maybe it's someone that like you're blocked with, like in your mind. And you sometimes do role playing with your therapist, but it's not the same as like sitting there and talking. So I think those are kind of like when technology can do something that a regular therapist or regular practitioner can't. I think that's really cool. And when it can augment it in a way where the human brain has some limitations, like, you know, imagine you're doing a new surgery. The idea of an AR interface that like has all the information that you probably don't remember as like an assistive layer, like I'm not a surgeon, but like going in and like doing the things to just give you like a super high tech vision. I think like the more we can, I think this is exactly what Pablo was saying, but the more we can find you were missing the word synergies. The more synergies we can find, I think the better off we'll be. Does that?
Your deep physics, right?
I think it's called Freud AI and then Pi by inflection, or I think it's Hey Pi. Give it a talk. Next time you're like, oh, should I send this text or is my mom being weird? Am I being weird? Like, I've tried it a few times and I sent it to my friend, and same as the Headspace experience, she told me she cried. So it's the next. Yeah, Pablo's gonna cry again.
Oh my God. No. Let's do. We'll get the links and we'll send them on the WhatsApp group. Let's do one more question if anyone wants to, and then later we could just like talk and get more questions one-on-one. Yeah.
How did I connect? The question was, I like behavioral science. How did I connect that with like my work at Spotify, Headspace, wherever? Yeah. Well, I mean, part of it is just in my brain, right? Like that was what I'm interested in. But the other part is, and I think you all might experience this a little bit, just being designers in like a competitive workforce, like hiring market, you kind of have to differentiate yourself when you're looking for a job or when you're doing interviews. And I remember when I was first making the transition from not designer to designer, I was working at Google as like a research assistant. I was trying to tell them like why me with zero design experience should be like the third designer at their startup. And I had to like kind of create a more of a through line for my work history that actually didn't exist. So part of it was that, right? And then trying to find ways to be like, hey, look, like this actually is really helpful. We're designing for humans, but how often do we talk about human behavior and like the huge pile of evidence-based like knowledge research that we have? It's kind of weird that we don't talk about it, I think. So a lot of it is luck. I never discount luck. Like I happened to study this thing that was kind of worthless when I graduated, but happens to be in like the cultural zeitgeist now. But I think there's probably a lot more stuff like that you can connect when the time comes. And luckily, Headspace had a behavioral science team, which I was like, great.
So the learning there is what I'm hearing is like, hey, like there's a lot of other stuff, other skills, other knowledge, and don't be afraid to go read that stuff. And then suddenly your brain is going to make the connections.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, this is like that thing, and then that will differentiate you. Right?
Yeah, I think so. And tell a good story about it. I had one more thought, and then I looked at you and I lost it. Hold on, it'll come back. Keep talking.
Well, but yeah, like that happened to me too. I just like went down the behavioral science like rabbit hole, and I was like, oh, dude, yes, of course, we could do so many stuff. And then I started realizing, oh, this is like a superpower. You can actually manipulate people with this stuff. You know, you can do like evil crap with this thing.
Yeah.
And then like everybody, like I think I did a talk about this because I had just read a book about from like what was it? Behaving badly, or I don't know. Well, it was a behavioral science book.
Yeah.
And I did a talk about that to a bunch of designers. it's one of those cognitive biases that you don't realize that everybody's talking about something until you realize, until you start talking about it. It's like, hey, well, why is everybody talking about that thing? That
Attentional bias.
Yeah, attention bias. Yeah, and I started seeing like all dark patterns. That's just pretty much just like all of that stuff, and like something that happened to me is a long time ago. I started like, I make comics, and like by making comics, I learned more about UX, and actually I read a book about like how to make comics. I think that's the name of the book. And then I realized like, oh crap, this is UX. You know, this is like, hey, making comics is just like making flows, and just like learning the different steps of the flow is really just making a comic, you know, in a way. So I don't know, like, but obviously it was more because I was learning this thing, and then I started learning this thing, and then I made those connections. So I'm pretty sure that if you grab a biology book, you're going to say, well, biology is all about UX.
Yeah.
You know?
There's so much in our biology, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There you go.
I remembered it. Thank you for saying things until I remembered it. You're also meaningful things, but
Okay.
there's a book called Range. I think it's by some Jewish name Epstein, and he talks about how generalists, like people who have different backgrounds, they thrive in our specialist world, because it's this weird thing where like people are like, I'm getting my PhD in this thing, or I'm like a 20-year expert in this thing, but actually it makes for better practitioners, designer, technologists. It makes for better those professions when you have like that. I was describing all of those disparate like references. There's a funny anecdote. I think it's in a couple of different books where like there's like whenever there's like a cardiology conference and the cardiologists are all like at the conference, kind of like us right now, the death rate of open heart surgery, so cardiologists are heart surgeons, the death rate goes down because all the experts are gone. So I'm not to say there's nothing wrong with experts, but like us normal people are good too. And I think it's the things that we don't necessarily think are related are what make us kind of special. So
there you go. Hey, thank you, Vicki. Hey, applause for Vicki. Come on.